Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Eyes of the Opposition series. This is of course a show in which I get the perspective of an opposition fan, writer, journalist or personality and get their thoughts ahead of Arsenal's fixture against them. Now this week's game is the Boxing Day fixture. Hope you're having a fantastic Christmas break. Those of you that are off work, those that are still working, keep playing through guys, we will get there in the end. And of course that's leading up to our Boxing Day game against Bournemouth, which Bournemouth has always been sort of this team that, since coming up to the Premier League, I've always been a bit concerned about facing. They've always been a team with some decent quality players like Callum Wilson, Joshua King, and then signed some really good ones too, like Harry Wilson. Jefferson Lerma's been fantastic, and I'm going to go into that a little bit with my guest very, very soon. And speaking of which, our guest this week is Sam from the Back of the Net podcast. Sam joined us earlier on in the season where Arsenal obviously beat Bournemouth at home, and that then led to a long string of awful performances from the Gunners, which ultimately led to Unai Emery getting sacked. So fingers crossed from an Arsenal perspective that we can do much better against the Cherries at the Vitality Stadium to really end this run and get back to winning ways. But I'm going to throw over to Sam now because I'm really sort of interested about Bournemouth because they've been so topsy-turvy. They've beat Chelsea, then lost to Burnley. What has been the reason for this topsy-turvy form?
This season, Bournemouth have been consistently inconsistent. It's been frustrating to watch. Even though in the Premier League we're a very small fish in a big pond, we are still used to playing attractive-looking football with almost a reckless, offensive style whereby we overlap, we get players forward, and quite often we've been involved in high-scoring matches, both where the opposition score, but we score more. And that's where Eddie Howe has maybe become a little bit more conservative, and I think there's a little bit of naivety with him. There's a bit of stubbornness that's probably not gone down well by sometimes fielding players that perhaps shouldn't be. However, we've played 4-4-2 for the much of this season, and it's been very difficult. Against Chelsea, I thought we did all right because we're playing a team that naturally attacks. Therefore, we had numerous occasions whereby we counter-attacked them. But when we play teams with a low block, like Burnley, like Sheffield United, like Watford, like Norwich, like Newcastle away, we constantly struggle. When they park the bus, so to speak, we're in real trouble. So that's why we're actually looking forward to this Arsenal fixture. Not that we're expecting to win, but at least we're expecting a chance for Bournemouth to play the football that we know and love, more so than what we did at Burnley. So I'd say it's more of the opposition that are dictating what it's like for Bournemouth fans at the moment, which is terrible because we should be the team that is dictating the play. Sadly, though, we're not. Work to do for Eddie Howe.
Now, on the positive side for Bournemouth is that there have been some really positive performances from some of their players. And Sam, if you could just give it a bit of a lowdown, who should Arsenal fans really be a little bit worried about going into this game? Who have been the stand-up performers and how have they done so well?
Depending on the injury situation, I'd say that Harry Wilson is always a threat, definitely from a set piece. Apart from that, not so much a goal threat, but Jefferson Lerma has been astounding in the centre of the park. And I think January, there are going to be maybe a few clubs that are looking at him because he has been our standout performer. Other than that, Josh King up front, or whether he's wide, pacey, fast, direct, and a real menace. Scored against you in our last home match against the Gunners, which we did lose 2-1. However, I think against your defence, we're hoping that he can cause some problems. In a previous video, I would have said Ryan Fraser, but he's not been to those levels that he would usually be at. This season, not sure whether he's been having his head turned by transfer speculations, but that sort of died down based on his form really alone. So if he really wants to get signed up by a team in January or at the end of the season, this is a great shop window for him, especially against Arsenal, who were one of the teams that were linked with him originally. So I'd like to see him have a good game for AFC Bournemouth, but standout performers, I would say, definitely got to be Josh King and also Jefferson Lerma.
Now, somehow I've managed to get through this video a few minutes into it now without mentioning, of course, Mikkel Arteta. The Spaniard taking charge of his first game as head coach of Arsenal since his appointment. He was in the stands against Everton, but was not actually employed as head coach until the following day. This will be his first official game on the touchline, and so seeing what he's about, seeing what he's going to put in, seeing what those few days of training have done for this team. Sam, from a Bournemouth perspective, what have you actually made of the appointment of Arteta?
Arteta, I'd say it's quite an astute signing. It's someone who's followed Pep Guardiola very closely and monitored his style for the last X amount of seasons, so he'll have picked up a wealth of experience. I think Arsenal fans will also have that connection with him as a player too. Now, for us, it's that sort of new manager bounce. Now, I know that he was watching from the stands from Everton. However, in this match, he's going to be on the touchline, and I think players are going to be wanting to play for him. They're playing for their position. He doesn't take any bad behaviour, let's put it that way, judging by his reputation. I've heard him speak, he's a very direct talker, and I think he's going to do well for Arsenal. The fans do, though, need to get behind him and give him a little bit of time. I wouldn't say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer amounts of time. However, I think that he will have a philosophy that's going to take time to bed in. If it doesn't at Bournemouth and your subsequent games, well, in 2020, early part, I'm sure you'll see the fruits of his labour for sure.
Now, sticking with the Spaniard, we always usually see that Arsenal are the team to face opposition sides that get that new manager bounce. But for once, Arsenal are the team that could get a new manager bounce. We didn't really see it when Freddie Ljungberg took the reins from Unai Emery after his sacking, but he wasn't an official appointment as head coach. He was that interim guy. So now we've got someone official in charge. Are you concerned, Sam, about a possible new manager bounce from the Arsenal?
Yeah, so as I just sort of almost alluded to, I think that new manager bounce will be there. But the thing is, whilst he's coming in, he's not going to be able to do an incredible job in a week. There are players that have been playing together. There's obviously miscommunication. People don't know each other's styles, and there's been a change of personnel like in pretty much every fixture this season for Arsenal. So there's not been that solid lineup. And for Bournemouth, there sort of has been. Now I know we're ravaged by injury, but I think Bournemouth tend to thrive under pressure, backs against the walls. That's why I think in a weird sort of perverse way we went and won at Chelsea, yet we lose at home to Burnley. It's a tough one from our sort of perspective, but Eddie Howe will be knowing that there's this new manager bounce, and he'll do everything that he can to try to prevent it. It's undeniable that there's going to be that extra bit of determination from each and every Arsenal player, and the subs on the bench are going to be sort of running in front of him left and right, trying to get noticed. And I'm sure in training they'll have also put in the extra mile as well. So it's going to be an interesting match at the weekend, and I think it's going to be quite absorbing. One that I hope Bournemouth can come out on top of, or at least scrape a draw.
Now we get to the all-important question of the predictions. So not only a scoreline, but Sam, I'm really interested about how you see Bournemouth lining up. You mentioned about an injury crisis. How might that affect the way that Eddie Howe decides to set this Bournemouth side up? And then ultimately, what prediction are you going to be going for too?
In terms of our lineup, well, this is where it gets ridiculously tricky. We've got an astronomical amount of players out injured at the moment, and it doesn't bode well. I mean, there are stalwarts like Steve Cook, Nathan Ake. Steve Cook might be back as our central defender. I'm hoping so, because at the moment we're short of a left back because Diego Rico, a weapon of a left foot, he's now suspended after picking up too many yellow cards, one against Burnley. So what we're going to do on the left side, I don't know. Ryan Fraser's quite versatile, that he could even play wing back, which lends to having three central defenders. So based on the fact that we've not got a recognised left back, we have got one. He's on loan at Seattle, I think. Brad Smith, the ex-Liverpool player that, like many ex-Liverpool players, have never really done the business for AFC Bournemouth, sadly. But I think Ryan Fraser can deputise in that position, and therefore we would probably need three central defenders, in which case, if Steve Cook does return, Chris Mepham and Simon Francis will be there with him, and then Jack Stacey. That'll be your three midfielders then, where I can't really see past having Jefferson Lerma, Dan Gosling, and it's either one of Lewis Cook and Philip Billing. Lewis Cook can unlock defences, very creative player, but kind of he's lost his mojo in the last match, but then he is playing in an unfamiliar position on the right-hand side. So it's either him or Philip Billing. I'm going to go for Billing. Probably will be playing him. And then up front, I can see Josh King starting with one of either Dominic Solanke, Callum Wilson or Harry Wilson, but I'm going to probably say that Callum's going to get the nod, and it'll be maybe a 5-3-2. 5 at the back's probably a good thing based on the fact that you are an attacking side. I'd prefer to see the extra man in the middle, but given our left back crisis, I think 5 at the back's probably about right. So that's what I'm going to go for in terms of the team. Scoreline prediction. Always love to be glass half full. I'm going to go for 1-1 though. I think that defensively we can put in a solid performance. We've always been a team that's lesser than the sum of our parts in recent games. Chelsea was the complete opposite. Playing big teams, we tend to galvanise. So I'm hoping that we do that home against the Gunners and send you fans home a little bit disgruntled. But do give Arteta time.
A huge thank you to Sam for taking the time out to give us the insight from a Cherry's perspective. You can find him on Twitter at AFCB Podcast. Those guys do some really good work for Bournemouth, and you can check out all of their stuff too. But ultimately, we really, in the comment section below, want to get your thoughts about how you're feeling ahead of the Bournemouth game. Mikkel Arteta's first game in charge of the Arsenal. Are you expecting him to pick up all 3 points, or are you expecting this poor form that Arsenal have currently been in to continue away at the Vitality Stadium? If you've enjoyed the series, please make sure you give the show a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here, and turn those notifications on so you can join our live shows. We go live after every single Arsenal game, if I'm there, being home rather than being at the game, because the Chelsea game will be a raw reaction show where unfortunately I won't be able to do it straight after the game because I'm going to be there. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys there as well, and we're going to enjoy Mikkel Arteta's first home game. But we've got this Bournemouth fixture ahead of that. We really need to focus on getting as many points from that game as possible. Please drop a like on the video. We'll see you again very, very soon, and as always, up the Arsenal.